Hey guys, in this video we've got the Notorious build, and what it is we're going to take this thing all apart and we're going to build an Outcast. And I've heard in the comments that you guys think we're going to build an EXB version, and that's kind of maybe not, but we're going to put some pretty cool parts in this and keep the cost down as best we can. Now, this one's going to be the Outcast, and we did get the EXB body for it, which I am pretty impressed with. We haven't pulled the plastic yet, but the EXB body looks pretty badass, and I'm really a fan of this one over that one. I like the newer body styles better, so for me, that looks pretty cool. We're going to go with that. Also, we bought ourselves a plastic kit, and if you go on eBay and you type in the type of car you have, say you go Arma Outcast 6S, these guys buy the cars and they part them out. This is all the plastic bits that go in there, from the bumpers to the arms to everything. This is all in this kit. You can find them at random. I mean, these guys part these things out. I don't think this one has the arms, but that's irrelevant. It has the battery tray, radio box, servo mount. Everything is in this. So I've got a brand new dose of that for the car. We are going to change the arms over, and of course you guys know we like RPM. So we've got some RPM arms, but these are version 5s, and so these are designed for this type of car. That's a version 5 Notorious. So we're going to make a V5 Outcast out of it, and we have all four corners of these. So that's pretty cool. We do have the EXB shock ends, so we're going to add those to it. We also have the EXB shock towers, and so we're going to put these in place too to make those a little tougher. These are for the center brace that goes all the way through. These are the aluminum ends for it, and these work pretty well. Also, we're going to upgrade, since when we did our test run, the servo gave up. Here's a 35 Kg Vtec Servo, and we use these in a lot of these, and they work really well. If we find the bearings are having problems, we've got a new bearing kit, and this is from Full Force RC. Alongside that, we are going to extend the wing up some, so we've got RPM wing mounts, we've got Italian wing, we've got an EXB Creighton front bumper. Now, if you don't know this, T-Bone Racing folded and closed up shop, and I'm really a fan of their wheelie bars. I'd bought 2 of them, had no idea this was going to happen, so I got 2 of them. These are for the Creighton. They will fit that car, so I'm going to stick one on there. The weird thing was, I was online looking at their site when the website blinked, and it just, all the stuff that they had was gone, and it said, "Thanks for all your support, TBR out." And that's that. They're done. So you can't get these anymore, so they are what they are, but I love these. They really made a great wheelie bar. So we're going to put that on there, and here's something new that we're going to try. There's a carbon fiber chassis for this. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick. It's got a billet aluminum 70-75 front bezel on it, and it looks like it's pretty well made. It doesn't weigh a whole lot, but carbon fiber is exceptionally strong, and it came with a screw kit. So in this video, we're going to jack all this stuff in, and we're going to put this whole thing together. In the next video, we're going to see how it works out. So this is the build video, guys. Check this out. So let's go ahead and have a look at the chassis. And this carbon fiber chassis is pretty thick. It looks pretty good. And we've already disassembled the car just to have an inspection on it, and we're going to go ahead and use it as is. We did tune up the diffs and made sure everything was good to go, and we just want to fit it on there. Not really worried about cleaning things up. We do want to get some good lube in here, but it is clean on the inside there. We are going to change 90% of the components, so cleaning it up isn't a big deal prior. We are going to clean things up as soon as we get it assembled. As long as the internals look clean, it's not a big issue, at least not for us. So let's get these components attached, and we'll see how that works. If you're curious, we are using white lithium grease, and that's something we've used here for a long time with no ill effects that we've been able to detect. We've heard both pros and cons about using it. Look guys, use what works for you. If you don't like the white grease, don't use the white grease. Grease is grease. Get some lube in there. That's all that really matters. So that being said, let's get this together. Looks like everything's well coated there. We'll get the front end and we'll get that mounted down. Now we're just putting a couple of these on here real quick just to hold things together, and then we'll start pulling things down and making things nice and snug. If you look at the gap between, well, gap's the wrong word, the thickness between the aluminum and the carbon fiber portion. There's a pretty big change there, and that has the potential to cause problems in the long run. We'll see how that works as we build it, but if you look at that difference, that's significant. The original chassis is flat, so that could change things a little bit. So let's get some plastic components out now, and what we want to do here is we want to get the side rails. That's what we're looking for. And there's a lot of components in here, and we will use quite a few of them, but right now we're just hunting for the side rails. So let's sort those out. There we go. And we'll get those in place. Now the thing is, with the thicker chassis, we are going to have to use different screws than what we took out of it with the thinner chassis. So hopefully the screws for this will be in that kit, and they appear to be. So hopefully there's enough of them, but we'll go ahead and install the side rails just real quick. There we go. Do the other side. And keep in mind, guys, this is going to be a fairly long video because this is a full build. We're going from 0 to 100 just the way we need to get this all put together. And then we're going to take it out in the next video and give her hell, see what it's good for. But this is the build, and it will take some time. All right, side rails in place. Let's get that battery tray and radio box installed. And if you'll notice, there's 4 holes in the bottom where it indexes. And on some of the chassis, there's more than 4, so you can index the battery in different locations. But on this one, it's got 1 set, so there is no choices as to where you're going to put the battery tray. It is indexed into 1 location. So let's go ahead and fix it down. This is a screwdriver, not an impact. And so it turns a lot slower than an impact does. And the impact, the problem with that is it has the tendency to, if you panic and pull the trigger a little more than you should, or just start running it faster than you should, running into plastic, you can burn these parts out, and then you're forced to buy new parts. So we found this gyroscopic screwdriver, and it only goes as fast as you twist your wrist, and it doesn't go super fast anyway, so it's a lot easier on the parts. So you won't see us using the impacts very often anymore. This is your 35 kg Vtec Servo, and it's a little bit taller than what you should normally have in this car. So it stands above the mount. So we're going to go ahead and put a spacer down in the bottom, and that's these blue ones. If you look down the corner, you'll see 2 more of them right there. Now we're going to get those in place, but we do have a problem because one of the mount bolts from the bottom is covered by the aluminum plate, and we had to back that out and change it. And take a look at this. This is the hidden screw right there, and you need to get that in first. So we had to loosen the front end and get that screw in and then continue. So that's kind of a pain in the neck, and that's partly because of the chassis we chose. So that does take a little bit of a ding there. With the spacers on top between the ears and the mount, that gives you a spacer below and a spacer on the top, and it's just enough to hold that servo perfectly in place. Now that does raise things up some, so on this arm we're going to extend this up, and that is a wing mount spacer. So we're going to use that to raise things up, and that'll get this arm in the right place. And we've done this before, and it does work quite nicely. So we'll get the nut on this first. And this, when you start to move it, you'll see it flex a little bit, but once you tighten it up, it'll stop doing that. So we're going to connect it to the blue arm first. So let's go ahead and roll it over there and tighten it up to that first, and then we'll show you how it flexes when it's loose. But you can tighten it right up and get rid of that flex. So check this out. Run this down a little bit. Nice. Okay, now watch the other part flex. See it flex back and forth a little bit? Okay, so that's because of the rise. But once you tighten this down, and you can tighten it pretty good because that ball is going to hold. So once you get that tightened down, it doesn't flex anymore. it holds real nice. So now it's a solid piece and everything functions the way it should. That front chassis brace did go in, but it was a real pain in the neck. The spacing was a little different because of the aluminum piece and the carbon fiber, so we did have to do some stretching, some loosening to get it in place. But that front chassis brace did go in, but it was a real pain in the neck. So let's go ahead and get that front bumper off. There we go. And we're going to pull out these spacers here, and these are used to index the top, and that sets how the front wheels react a little. So on this particular set of arms, there's two thin ones on the rear and there's one thicker one in the front, and that's what they use to set the angle of the front wheels. So we need to get those out first so we can remove these. We are putting new arms on the car, so these will no longer be necessary. There we go. Now let's get those out drives off, because we are changing those as well. We're going to put the aluminum out hub carriers on it, so we want to get rid of these. And we'll get those spacers out. Nice. And we'll back out the pillar walls. And there's one more spacer right here on the top arm. So we want to keep that one. We'll probably use that again. So there's the top ball. These balls are all the same size, so it doesn't matter top, bottom, they're the same. Nice. There's the bottom one. Now we have to disconnect the steering linkage. So this takes two different size hex drivers, and I always like to put the screw back in. And now we're going to back out the grub screw a little bit, and this will allow us to get that drive pin out. There it is. Drive pin's right there. And there's the hex. Now we can push the axle out, and it's just running through two bearings here. So there's the CV and the axle, and there's the outer and the inner ball bearing set. So let's push those out, and we'll give those a feel to see if there's any grit or any drag in them or anything. Make sure they're as smooth as they need to be. So quick check. That one's nice and smooth. That one's nice and smooth as well. So we're going to go ahead and reuse these, and that'll work out just fine. Now, since we just showed you how to take the other side apart, we're just going to speed through this side, so we're not going to go in depth here. So here are the two outdrive units. These are the plastic ones, and we are going to replace those with some aluminum ones. First off though, let's go ahead and get these arms off. Take the brace off the front. Hinge pin came with it, so we'll have to have a look at that. It'll come apart easy enough. Get the hinge pin out of the other side. And we want to go ahead and pull these two pins for the top arm. So we'll back these out, nice and easy. And we'll remove those. There we go. Not bad. Okay, now we'll go ahead and we'll pull the pins for the bottom of the shocks. This will detach the shock from the arm itself, so we got to get this out of there. And this is necessary since we are going to change the shock tower and we are going to change the arm, so all of this must come apart. This is part of the reason we didn't clean it yet, because no need to clean parts we're not putting back on there. And there's just something relaxing about just wrenching on these things. There's no hurry. It's just relaxing. It gives you a chance to take your mind off of other things and just focus on a problem. And that's really cool. I find it exceptionally relaxing. And the funny part is, I'm not really keen on working on other people's cars, and I don't really know what that is, but working on the channel's cars, I don't have anything to worry about whether people like or don't like the modifications I've done. And, you know, when you wrench on a buddy's car and something breaks, you always seem to hear about it. But if they wrench on their own car, it never seems to come back to you unless you told them how to do it. And that's kind of one of the things. If you wrench on someone's car and it doesn't hold up, then of course you're the villain here. So for me, I just like wrenching on my own stuff because, I mean, I'm going to blame me anyway. So here's the new EXB shock tower, and we'll go ahead and install that one. Now, straight up on this, guys, we did do a full shoot on the disassembly of the car. We did the full video and everything, and the computer ate the footage. We can't find it. It's gone. What we could find was corrupted, so we had to start from scratch. It's not that we didn't want you to see how we took the car apart. We literally filmed it all, but we were unable to make the video due to, I guess you'd have to call it, technical difficulties. So this is what we're left with. However, it is called the build and not the teardown, so you're still seeing the video as posted. I just wish we could have been a little more complete and showed you how it come apart. So now we're transferring all the small bits and pieces from the old arms, which are the version 5 front arms, to the RPM arms that we're putting in their place. So it's just a matter of transferring things across. And I like to transfer them right there on the spot so you can look and see which hole things came from and put them right back in the same location on the new arms. Do one at a time and straight from one location to the other. Don't just take everything apart. But at least my brain doesn't work well enough to take everything apart into a pile and put everything exactly back where it was. I kind of have to see where it came from, and I think that's pretty normal for most people. So one item at a time from one arm to the other, and that will help you get everything in the right locations. There we go. There's another item here. Go. There's the item we were looking for. Got to put the hinge pin back in. Now those are relatively straight and they had a little dirt on them, but they aren't as bad as they look. So we're going to go ahead and reuse them the way they are. Get that in there just a little better. There we go. Not too bad. Let's go ahead and connect that sway bar while we have access to it. Right now we can reach everything real cleanly, so we'll go ahead and attach it now. Top arm, same deal. We put it right back the way the other one came out. And the cool thing about the RPM ones are, when we took the stock arms off, they had the shims. So there was 2 on one side and 1 on the other. The RPM arms actually fit, so there's no need for the shims at all. It fits nice and snug. It's not tight down in any way. It does move quite nicely, but it doesn't require the shims, which is kind of a nice touch, I think. We'll go ahead and get the other side real quick. And this is simply the same thing we did on the other side. It's looking pretty good now. Beautiful. Get it in place. We'll connect that sway bar. Now we need the top arm in place. Nice. Now let's get that brace in the front. Okay, so for the EXB front bumper, you have to have this piece in place, so we'll put this in place of the stock one that came off of the car. There we go. And I'm aware that it looks like I'm running those in pretty quick, but keep in mind, guys, this is sped up so it didn't take all day. And so I'm not putting them in nearly as fast as it seems. Get that bumper in place. There we go. And I am a real fan of these front bumpers. That scooping front end, it gets you over more debris. If you don't have this sweeping front end like that, it will pile into stuff and it'll stop the car cold and bend stuff. With this, it works kind of like a shovel. It goes up and over things instead of actually piling into stuff, and it really does save a lot of wear and tear on the vehicle. So I think they knocked it out of the park when they created this front bumper set. Looking good. All right. Let's go ahead and get the standoffs in place. That one's a little bit bent. Come on. There we go. Let's get the other one out. There, that's nice and straight. That's beautiful. Okay. Little left-handed action. There we go. And we'll go ahead and put the standoffs right back in place and torque it on a little bit. There we go. Get the threads lined up, and here we go. Nice. Just like that. Now make sure to get the little ball in there at the top of the shock and put the protector over the top. That'll hold the ball in place while you get things in line here. There we go. We'll do that for both sides. Get the nut in place. Okay. Now we left that screw in the back there. We left it a little bit loose so we could slide that right in, then tighten it down later. So that's why it was sticking up in the first place. I anticipated this happening. So it'll allow you to go ahead and slide that pin all the way in and not have to back that screw out. There you go. Now we can tighten those screws down and it'll fix that pin in place. With this, run them down snug. You don't have to crank it down. The pin has a little slot in it, so it'll hold it in place. Snug does the job here, guys. Excellent. It's really starting to take shape up in the front. Let's get those body posts in place. And this is one of the nice things about buying these plastic kits is they have all the little trinkets in them, and it's not like you can go to any one place and get them. The companies that take these apart are relatively random. One day they'll have what you need, they sell them out, they don't have them anymore, so you just need to search the part as far as the car itself and see if they have these full kits. Every now and then I stumble across one and it really helps. So this hub carrier is one we use on the Creightons a lot. This one, we've never had one of these fail. Everything fits together so nicely with these, and even when you have to work on stuff in the field, being that it's threaded aluminum, everything goes together so nice with these. And I'm not saying that this particular brand is stellar or anything, but having the aluminum ones is such an advantage over the plastic ones. It just is. They don't add that much weight. They add way heavy durability as far as those components go, and it's definitely worth the effort to put them on. So I definitely look for the atomic ones because I've had such good luck with them. There we go. Balls still look good, so let's go ahead and thread those in. Now we're only going to go part of the way in on this one because we still have to get that drive shaft in place. So a little bit on the bottom, a little bit on the top, but we want to keep enough room in there to get that drive line lined up with the cup so that the ball end goes straight in. Once you get it lined up, then you can run it down some. Now the top one gets a spacer, so don't crank it down all the way. Get it close. The bottom, if you're lined up, go ahead and cinch it down. And then we want to get that spacer back in place. There we go. Excellent. So let's go ahead and fix the balls in place. And these do a great job of retaining those. And the trick to these is run them down till they're snug down tight. So it's snug. And then you turn it back out 1/4 turn, and that's perfect setup. So you run it down until the ball doesn't want to swivel, back it out 1/4 of a turn, and you are set exactly the way they call for in the manual. So that's how you set those up. Let's go ahead and hook up the steering links now and make sure everything is acting the way it should. So we're going to quickly run through the other side as we did before. The assembly is just like the opposite side, so no need to go in depth here. Okay, that feels pretty good. So let's go ahead and start on to the rear. A lot of this is similar to the front of the car, so we're going to do a lot less chatter on this one. We do enjoy just letting the video roll and enjoying just the build itself. We'll pop in once in a while and let you know the important bits, but basically, guys, enjoy the build. Okay, so now we're on to the top rod, and we're going to swap out these plastic ends for some hot racing ones. So first we've got to remove the original ends, and they thread right off, and that's a pretty solid little shaft there. So these are the units we're going to put in their place, and they are aluminum and steel. Honestly, I've never had one of the plastic ones fail, but these are a pretty solid item and I do use them once in a while, so we're going to go ahead and install them today. Kind of a nice looking unit, and here's the other one. Very nice. Okay, so there's a steel ball, and then you put an O-ring on the outsides, and that holds that ball in place, like so. We'll do that to both ends, and then install it into the holder. Now these can be a little bit stubborn, especially if they've been over tightened, so you might have to fight a little bit to get them in, but they do go. Only do the front and wait, because you have to get the internals in first before you can latch it down to the back. And there's a reason we're doing it in this order, because if you do it out of order, you're going to have problems when you put the wing mounts on. So let's go ahead and get the center differential in place with the motor and all that assembly, and we're just going to put a couple of screws in it for now to hold it in place, one into the plastic, one into the aluminum, and that'll hold all of the running gear in place, which will also allow us to get that center brace down now. Now we need to connect that. There we go. Now that one's a little bit tight, so we got to pry it a little bit. Good. Now you can get this. This is the wing mount, and the thing is that bolt that holds that rod end is underneath these wing mounts, and it makes it almost impossible to do without taking the wing mounts off first. So you have to assemble in this order if you're going to use these components. So we got the center brace into the rear now, and we're going to finish putting all of our controllers in that hold the wing mount and the chassis brace and all that in place. And remember, these spacers are offset. Small one goes away from the motor. That allows it to offset so the brace does not hit the drive shaft. Okay, let's get on to the wheelie bar now, and we'll go for the first component. These connect right through the back of the aluminum piece, so these new longer bolts do the job. But these parts here are important to make sure that you've got some strength in your wheelie bar. Now we're going to take out the front two, but we'll leave the back two bolts in, and I'll show you why in a second. This is a piece of fuel tubing, and it's used for spacing. So this isn't something they recommend, it's something we've discovered over time. So put a little piece of that fuel tubing in there, and that fuel tubing will fill that chamfer that's down in those two holes and keep those relatively centered. So as you crank them down in there, those will fill the gap and it will hold it more in place. There we go, because those have a tendency to wander. Now you put the back two into the new brace that we put on the back and leave the center two out. That allows the center two to lock down the rear end so the rear end doesn't walk on you. That's the one problem with these wheelie bars, is if you use all the screw holes, it allows it to wear on the holes and it'll begin to walk over time. But once you do it this way, it locks it all down, and that's no longer a problem. Finishing the assembly, we attach the top component to the bottom, snug those down. And now we'll go ahead and put the wheelie bars on. Now, I like to put them on backwards so they hang out farther. So this isn't the way they're supposed to go on. They're supposed to, the shape should match. But I like the wheels out farther, so I put all mine on this way. It's nice, they're interchangeable. It's not a problem. So that works out pretty good. There we go. Now let's go ahead and assemble the rest of the wing mount. We'll get the jacks on the outside. And on this car, we're going to need to have those jacks all the way up to keep that wing up as high as possible, because the rear shape of the body is a little aggressive and it may be hard to get in there. So we're going to set it as high as possible. If later, if we find we need to, we'll lower it down. Nice. That's looking pretty good, really. So now we'll get these body posts in. And they look like they're properly adjusted. I want them as close to the top of the shock tower as possible. Now we'll go ahead and add the speed control. It feels good to be down to the electronics at this point. So get one screw in there to hold it, and then just start feeding the other ones in nice and slow. No big hurry here. Don't melt the plastic. They're kind of short screws anyway, so you don't want to overheat the plastic with this. Nice. Okay, so far so good. Let's arrange the wiring to the motor. Looks like they were in backwards originally, so let's put them in forward. So they all look really nice and organized. There we go, that's good. And we might as well mount the on switch. Find the right screw here. There we go. And on this side pod, it holds it up nice so you can reach it. That's really nice. Now this little foam slit right here, you need to lift this up so that you can fish the wires down through it. If you don't pull it up, you'll have a tendency to bunch things. So you need to pull it out somewhat, not all the way, but somewhat. Now this is a 215, this is a Spectrum receiver. It's just a 2-channel, it has no gyro, none of that stuff. It's a small one. After we do our test sync or our bind, then we'll go ahead and we will stick this down proper. Right now it's just down for temporary. Fish those two through there. Make sure there's some slack. Nice. Just get the wires down. And let's finish locking down the motor mount. Now, I am using Loctite on all this stuff. You may not see it, but it's there. And we are using it on all the components. Okay, let's get those wheels on. Now, these are Fireteam wheels and tires. I love these tires and wheels. They are way more forgiving than the LPs that come on the Outcast. And they're just, in my opinion, a better all-around tire. So we're going to go ahead and give these a sample and see how they run out. And it should look pretty cool, you know, with those and the new body and all that. Beautiful. And we got a basher body. The orange one is for bashing, but the EXB one is going to be for show. Okay guys, so there is the build footage for the Outcast. Now this Outcast 6S, it's not really EXB, although it does have some of those components in it. But I'm not sure what to think of this carbon fiber chassis just yet. With the offset here and the offset inside, some of the parts went in relatively difficult. And the one that I'm really thinking of here is that front center brace. And we really had to loosen up all the components. And those components that we had to loosen up were all of these around this aluminum unit to make it so it would move a little bit. Once we loosened those up, we were able to slide things just a little bit to get the stock brace, which should fit just right, in place. Now that also caused a little tension between the top rod, but that there's okay too because we were able to get everything cinched down in place. It just wasn't all that easy. And if you take a look at just the standard chassis here we go. This is what comes out of one of those. It's a standard Typhon chassis, but if you look, it's flat. There's absolutely no, it's supposed to be flat. This one's bent. But at the front, there's a little angle portion, and that's all. The rest is flat. And when you start bolting components onto other components, if you don't get those dead level, it changes how things go together. That being said, it did go together, and that is a nice touch. So with all the components in place using the Fireteam tires, it should be a pretty cool rig overall. Still, it contains the stock drivetrain. It contains everything that is stock except for one item here. First off, when you buy things from a pawn shop, guys, you never know what you're going to get until you take it apart. The LP tires looked pretty good. Seemed to be handling okay, but they weren't. And we really didn't figure that out until we took it apart. And this one here had come loose. Whoever owned this before we did spun this hub out tightened it up and sold it. Okay, so this tire is junk. The wheel is hogged out. It's no longer usable. So regardless, we'd have to buy a new tire, at least one, probably a pair. Also, when we got into the radio box, we discovered the antenna had been snipped off for the radio, and that explains why it was having range problems when you go so far. If you go over a bank very far, it would drop signal. That's why. So that was another item. For the rear chassis brace, the center brace, they stuck this little metal unit in there because they didn't have the proper spacer. So that had to be replaced as well. And they did something that I haven't seen done before. Instead of just changing the arms, they got these aluminum pieces and riveted them on, which seemed to work as far as that goes, but the bolts that go through still broke off in the rear differential. It really wasn't a good solution, but if you didn't have access to arms, I guess it got them by. Putting the RPM arms on the wing mount, they're way more flexible. They don't transfer that weight to the bolts nearly as bad when you impact, and they'll bend as opposed to breaking or bending those bolts off in the tail. What's a real advantage there. One thing I am really happy about is we've got a lot more protection out front here with the EXB front bumper, and this wheelie bar now stops it right there for a wheelie, so now you can get up on the wheels and run it for a while. The other one allowed it to sit up way too high in my opinion. It was cool for standing backflips, but the stock vehicle with the stock gearing, it was really hard to do that anyway. You kind of had to throw some money at it and gear it up to get it to do that. I like this a lot better. So when you see this on the channel running, you're going to see this orange body. That's our basher body. However, when you see it on the shelf, guys, it's going to be wearing this one. So let's get the plastic off it and have a look at this one. That's the EXB body, and it's got a beautiful finish to it. It's all black, and on camera it probably looks that way, but it's got this overall modeling that really makes it look good. So we're going to put this on here, and we're going to, for those of you that made it to the end, check this out.
Someone to save. I want to tell you something new. You drove us both into a wall. I drive away into the night, and I contemplate for a while. Don't you think for the people that testify back my stuff like you sooner than this? Don't you think for the people that testify back my stuff like you sooner than this? Don't you wish I would have been someone else? I want to feel your gap without making a mess at you. Won't you tell me something new? I want to tell you something new. I wish you all the best I can, and I stop myself for a while. I'm saying things I don't believe. The panic's rising up in you. Why won't you tell me something new?
Hey guys, this is generally where I ask you to subscribe and all that good stuff, but I'm actually just going to ask you to bash that like button. That helps our content grow to other channels. You know, people can see what we're trying to do here, and it helps the most. If you feel like you really want to subscribe, please do so, but the like button is the most help we can get. So if you guys have done a modification on one of these things and you'd like to share what you've done, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below and help others along the way. The bash video's upcoming, guys. For AJGM Studios, I'm AJ saying, keep wrenching, guys.